Welcome to the Royal Griot. To all our loyal subscribers, thank you for being the heartbeat of this channel. Your support keeps these stories alive. If you are new here, you are welcome to the family where we tell the African stories that matter. Before we begin, I want to know where my family is gathered. Are you watching from the bustling streets of New York, the sunny hills of Montego Bay, or the warmth of Atlanta? Drop your city and flag in the comments below right now. Now sit back. The rain is falling in Lagos and the drama is about to begin. Get out of my way. Do you know how much this suit costs? I roared, my voice cracking against the thunder that shook the very foundation of the third mainland bridge. My name is Adewale Balogun. To the business world, I am the Iron King of Lagos. I own the skyline. I build the estates that people dream of living in. My net worth is whispered in hushed tones in boardrooms from London to Johannesburg. I do not beg. I do not wait. And I certainly do not stand in the rain. But tonight, the heavens had opened up in a way even my money couldn't control. My driver, Sunday, was trembling as he looked at the smoking engine of the Rolls-Royce Phantom. We were not on the bridge anymore. We had taken a shortcut through a dense, flooded neighborhood on the mainland to avoid the heavy traffic, a decision I was currently regretting with every fiber of my being. The car, a machine worth more than this entire community combined, was dead. Sir. The water level, Sunday stammered, pointing to the murky brown floodwater rising rapidly around the tires. The engine is flooded. I have to go find a mechanic or a tow truck. The signal is bad here. You will leave me here? I looked around. It was pitch black, save for the occasional flash of lightning that illuminated the rusted zinc roofs and the narrow, muddy streets. This was not my world. This was a place of struggle, a place I had spent 40 years working to forget. I have no choice, sir. Please lock the doors. I will run. Sunday vanished into the downpour, leaving me alone in the leather backseat of a useless metal box. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. The air conditioning had died with the engine, and the humidity began to choke me. I felt like a prisoner in my own wealth. Then I saw them. Shadows. 3 men moving through the rain with purpose. They weren't looking for shelter. They were looking for prey. They had spotted the car. Panic, cold and sharp, pierced through my arrogance. I couldn't stay here. If they broke the glass. I grabbed my briefcase, holding contracts worth millions, and shoved the door open. The water rushed in, soaking my Italian leather shoes instantly. I stumbled out, the wind tearing at my umbrella until it snapped inside out. I ran. I ran blindly towards the faint glow of a kerosene lamp in a window a few houses down. It was a small, dilapidated bungalow with peeling blue paint, sitting slightly higher than the flooded road. I pounded on the metal door. Open up. I will pay you. Just open the door. The shadows behind me were shouting now. Oga. Stop there. I banged harder, my fist bruising against the iron. Please. Help me. The door creaked open just a crack. A pair of eyes, sharp and weary, stared out at me. A woman. She looked at my soaked suit, the fear in my eyes, and then past me at the approaching men. She didn't ask who I was. She didn't ask for money. She simply grabbed my wrist with a grip surprisingly strong for her frame and yanked me inside. Clang. She slammed the bolts shut just as a heavy thud hit the wood from the outside. Go away, she screamed, her voice fierce, echoing like a lioness protecting her den. I have called the police. It was a lie, of course. In this weather, in this neighborhood, the police wouldn't come for hours. But the bluff worked. We heard grumbling, footsteps splashing in the water, and then silence, save for the relentless drumming of the rain on the zinc roof. I leaned against the cold wall, gasping for breath. My heart hammered against my ribs. I was safe, but I was furious. Furious at the situation, furious at my driver, furious at my own vulnerability. You are dripping on my rug, the woman said. I looked up. She was standing there, arms crossed. She was beautiful in a way that had nothing to do with makeup or expensive weaves. Her hair was braided simply back. She wore a faded Ankara wrapper and a plain white t-shirt. Her skin was the color of deep mahogany, glowing in the dim light of the lantern. But her eyes held a fire that made me straighten up. I am Adewale Balogun, I announced, expecting recognition. Expecting awe. My car broke down. I need to use your phone. My battery is dead. She didn't blink. I am Chioma. And I don't care if you are the president. You are wet, you are loud, and you are going to wake my son. She pointed to a corner of the small one-room apartment. A small boy, no older than 5, was curled up on a thin mattress, sound asleep despite the thunder. I felt a flash of irritation. Woman, do you know who I am? I can buy this entire street. I just need a phone. And I said, she lowered her voice to a dangerous whisper, stepping closer to me, you will keep your voice down. My phone has no credit. The network is down because of the storm. You are stuck here. Stuck. The word tasted like ash. I looked around the room. It was tiny. A small kerosene stove in the corner, a stack of books, the mattress where the boys slept, and a larger bed pushed against the far wall. Buckets were placed strategically around the room to catch water dripping from the leaking roof. Plip. Plop. Plip. Fine, I snapped, reaching into my wet jacket. I pulled out a wad of soggy Naira notes. Here. Take this. For your trouble. I will sit in the chair until the rain stops. Chioma looked at the money with disdain. Your money is wet, Mr. Balogun. And it is useless to me tonight. Keep it. She turned and walked to the stove, stirring a small pot of porridge. The smell of simple food filled the room, and my stomach betrayed me with a loud growl. I hadn't eaten since lunch. Sit, she commanded, pointing to a worn-out armchair. I sat. The hours dragged on. The rain didn't stop, it intensified. The water level outside was rising. I could hear it lapping against the doorstep. The flood is coming in, Chioma said, her voice tight with worry. She went to the door and checked the seal she had made with old rags. It's rising fast. She looked back at me, then at the floor. The water was starting to seep in, creating a puddle near the boy's mattress. He cannot sleep on the floor, she said, panic finally cracking her composure. She rushed over and scooped the boy up. He stirred, rubbing his eyes. Mama? Shunned. Go back to sleep. She placed him gently on the big bed, the only dry, elevated surface in the room. She looked at me, then at the armchair I was sitting in. The water was creeping towards my expensive shoes again. The bed is the only safe place, she said, her voice stiff. The water will cover the floor in an hour if this rain continues. I stared at her. You expect me to share a bed with you? I expect you to survive, she shot back. Unless you want to stand in floodwater all night and catch pneumonia. I don't have space for a sick billionaire. She was right. The water was already ankle-deep in the corners. The bed was raised high on wooden blocks. It was large enough, but the intimacy of it made my skin prickle. I had shared beds with women, yes, models, heiresses. But this? A stranger? A single mother in a slum? This is ridiculous, I muttered, standing up as the cold water touched my socks. Take off your shoes and your jacket, she ordered, turning her back to give me privacy. You will ruin the sheets. I stripped off my soaked jacket and shoes, feeling stripped of my armor. I climbed onto the bed, staying strictly on the edge, my back to the wall. The mattress sagged. It was old. Chioma climbed in on the other side, placing the sleeping boy between us like a human shield. Do not touch me, she warned, blowing out the lantern. I have no intention of it, I scoffed, lying down stiffly in the darkness. The room went black. The only sound was the rain and the steady breathing of the child. I lay there, eyes wide open, smelling the scent of her, soap and rain. It was disarming. Minutes turned into an hour. The rhythmic breathing of the boy and the sound of the rain began to lull me. My eyelids grew heavy. The arrogance, the anger, it all began to drift away, replaced by a strange exhaustion. I must have dozed off. Boom. A massive clap of thunder shook the house, louder than anything before. I jolted awake, disoriented. What? Shoo. Chioma's voice was right next to my ear. I realized with a jolt that in my sleep, I had shifted. The boy was no longer between us. He had rolled to the foot of the bed. I was lying inches from Chioma. The room was illuminated by a sudden, blinding flash of lightning, and for a split second, I saw her face clearly. She wasn't looking at me. She was looking at the window. But that wasn't what stopped my heart. As the lightning faded, leaving us in darkness again, I felt something cold and hard press against my temple. Don't move, Adewale, Chioma whispered. Her voice was no longer the voice of a struggling single mother. It was cold, precise, and terrifyingly familiar. If you make a sound, the Lion of Lagos dies tonight. I froze. My breath caught in my throat. She knew my name. But the way she said it, it wasn't recognition. It was a vendetta. Who are you? I whispered, my voice trembling. Ask me what happened 7 years ago, she hissed in the dark. The clock on the wall chimed. It was midnight. The metal pressed harder against my temple, a circle of ice burning into my skin. Outside, the thunder cracked again, shaking the flimsy window frames, but inside that room, the silence was louder than the storm. My heart hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird, counting down the seconds of a life I thought was untouchable. I said, "Do not move," Chioma whispered. Her voice was trembling, not with fear, but with a rage so old and deep it felt like it was vibrating through the mattress. I swallowed, my throat dry as sandpaper. "Chioma, listen to me. Whatever you think I did." "Think?" She let out a short, bitter laugh that sounded like glass breaking. "You think you ruined my life? I know you, Adewale Balogun. You don't know me because to you, people like me are just numbers on a spreadsheet. We are ants you step on to build your skyscrapers." My eyes adjusted to the darkness. I could just make out the silhouette of her arm, rigid and tense. The gun wasn't a toy. I could smell the faint, metallic scent of gun oil mixed with the dampness of the room. This woman, this good Samaritan who had pulled me from the flood, was prepared to end the biggest empire in Lagos right here on a sagging mattress in the slums. 7 years ago, I said, trying to keep my voice steady, trying to summon the boardroom authority that usually made grown men crumble. "What happened 7 years ago? Does the name Harmony Markets mean anything to you?" she hissed. The name hit me like a physical blow. Harmony Markets. It was one of my first major acquisitions. A sprawling, chaotic, vibrant market in the heart of the mainland. I had bought the land from the state government, cleared it, and built the Emerald Towers, luxury apartments that now sold for 300 million naira apiece. "I see you remember," she said, sensing my stiffening body. "You remember the profits. Do you remember the demolition?" "It was legal," I stammered, the excuse tasting like ash in my mouth. "We gave notice." "You gave 2 days," she snapped, the gun barrel digging deeper. 2 days for 3,000 traders to pack up their lives. My father had a shop there. It was a small electronics repair shop. It wasn't much, but it paid for my university fees. It put food on our table. It was his pride. Tears were thick in her voice now, hot and heavy. "The bulldozers came at dawn, Adewale. They didn't check if the shops were empty. My father, he went back in to get his tools. He said they were his life." She stopped, her breath hitching. I closed my eyes, a cold sweat breaking out on my forehead. I knew the reports. There had been minor casualties during the clearance. My lawyers had buried it. My PR team had spun it as urban renewal. I had signed the checks for the settlements and never looked back. "He died of a heart attack watching his life's work get crushed into dust," Chioma whispered. "And the compensation? The generous envelope your company sent? It wasn't enough to bury him properly. I dropped out of school. I sold everything. I ended up here." The weight of her words settled on me, heavier than the floodwater outside. I was the villain in her story. I wasn't the celebrated tycoon. I was the monster who had eaten her future. "I didn't know," I said softly. It was a weak defense, pathetic even to my own ears. "Ignorance is a luxury for the rich," she spat. "Now, give me one reason why I shouldn't pull this trigger." "The police won't come. The flood will wash away the evidence. To the world, it will look like the great Adewale Balogun was a victim of a robbery gone wrong. For the first time in my life, money couldn't save me. I couldn't write a check to fix this. I couldn't call a senator. I was stripped bare, just a man in the dark facing his sins. Because of him," I said, my voice barely a whisper. I nodded toward the foot of the bed, where little Tund was curled up, oblivious to the fact that his mother was holding a gun to a billionaire's head. "If you kill me," I continued, speaking slowly, "you go to prison. Or worse, my security team finds you. And then Tund is alone. He becomes an orphan. Just like you." Chioma went rigid. The logic was cruel, but it was undeniable. I heard her breath shuddering, a jagged rhythm in the dark. The gun didn't move, but her resolve wavered. I could feel the conflict warring within her, the desire for vengeance clashing with the primal instinct of a mother. "He is all I have," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Then don't lose him for a moment of satisfaction," I pressed, sensing an opening. Chioma put the gun down. "I swear to you on my life I will fix this. I can't bring your father back. But I can." "Don't you dare offer me money," she growled. "Not now." Suddenly Tund stirred. He let out a small, sleepy whimper and kicked his leg out, his small foot brushing against my knee. "Mama?" His voice was thick with sleep. "I'm cold." The tension in the room snapped like a dry twig. Chioma pulled the gun back instantly, sliding it under her pillow with a practiced speed that chilled me. She shifted her body, blocking me from Tund's view, transforming from executioner back to mother in a split second. "It's okay, baby," she cooed, her voice trembling only slightly. "Mama is here. It's just the storm." She reached out and felt the mattress. "Oh God." "What?" I asked, sitting up, my heart still racing. The water, she said, panic replacing the anger in her tone. The water has reached the mattress. I touched the sheets. They were damp. The flood wasn't just on the floor anymore, it was rising fast. The third mainland bridge storm was historic, but I hadn't realized it was catastrophic. If the water was this high, the foundation of this small bungalow was in danger. We have to move, I said, my survival instinct kicking in, overriding the awkwardness of the last 5 minutes. Is there a loft? A roof access? No, Chioma said, scrambling to her knees. She grabbed Tund, who was now fully awake and starting to cry. The roof leaks. If we go up, we'll be exposed to the lightning. The wardrobe. It's the highest point. She pointed to a sturdy, tall wooden wardrobe in the corner. It was old mahogany, heavy and solid. Get on top of it, I commanded, all business now. I'll lift the boy. Don't touch him, she snapped instinctively. Woman, do you want to drown or do you want to argue? I barked, the Iron King emerging again. Pass me the boy. She hesitated for a fraction of a second, then handed Tund to me. He was light, shivering against my chest. He smelled of baby powder and rain. For a moment, holding this child of the woman who wanted to kill me, I felt a strange surge of protectiveness. I waded through the knee-deep water in the room, it was freezing, and hoisted Tund up onto the flat top of the wardrobe. Climb up, I told Chioma. She scrambled up, her wet wrapper clinging to her legs. I followed, groaning as my bespoke suit tore at the shoulder. We sat huddled together on top of the wardrobe, our heads inches from the rusted zinc ceiling. The rain hammered down just inches above us, deafening and relentless. It was a tight fit. My shoulder was pressed against hers. I could feel the heat radiating from her body. Tund sat between us, clutching a small, worn-out teddy bear. Are we going to die? Tund asked, his big eyes looking up at me in the gloom. I looked at Chioma. She was staring straight ahead, her jaw set, tears silently streaming down her face. She was exhausted. The fight had drained her. No, I said firmly, looking the boy in the eye. My name is Adewale. I am a builder. I build things that don't fall down. You are safe. Tund seemed satisfied with this. He leaned his head against my arm, the arm of the man who destroyed his grandfather's legacy, and closed his eyes. We sat there for hours. The water kept rising, swirling black and angry around the furniture below. My shoes were floating near the door. The kerosene stove had tipped over. Chioma's life was literally drowning and I was perched on the wreckage. Why didn't you shoot? I asked quietly after an hour of silence. The thunder had rolled away, leaving just the heavy drum of the rain. Chioma didn't look at me. Because I am not you, she said simply. I don't destroy things just because I can. The words stung more than the gun barrel had. I will make it right, I said. I know you don't believe me. But I will. You can't fix a broken plate, Adewale, she sighed. You can only glue it back together. But the cracks will always show. Around 4 a.m. the rain finally stopped. The silence that followed was eerie. The water level stagnated, then slowly, painfully slowly began to recede. I must have drifted into an uneasy sleep, my head resting against the wall, Tund heavy against my side. I was woken by the sound of shouting. Oga. Oga, sir. Mr. Balogun. It was Sunday, my driver. And he wasn't alone. I heard sirens. Heavy boots splashing in the water outside. In here. I shouted, my voice hoarse. Kick the door. Bang. The metal door flew open. Beams of heavy-duty flashlights cut through the gloom, blinding us. Sir. Are you okay? Jesus is Lord. Sunday waded in, followed by 2 armed mobile police officers and a private security team dressed in tactical gear. The room was suddenly full of noise, authority, and the stench of aggressive rescue. Get me down, I ordered, my dignity returning with the arrival of my entourage. 2 guards rushed forward, lifting Tund down first, then helping Chioma, and finally offering their hands to me as if I were royalty descending from a throne, not a wet man sliding off a wardrobe. Sir, the car is totaled, but the extraction team is here. The SUV is waiting on the main road, the head of security barked. We tracked your phone's last location. I stood in the muddy water, straightening my torn suit. I looked at Chioma. She was standing in the corner, holding Tund tight. She looked terrified. The police officers were eyeing her suspiciously, their hands hovering near their rifles. To them, she was just a slum dweller who happened to be in the room with a billionaire. Did these people harm you, sir? The police sergeant asked, stepping toward Chioma aggressively. Did they hold you hostage? We can take them in right now. Chioma's eyes went wide. She clutched Tund, backing against the wall. She knew how this worked. If I said the word, if I even hinted at the gun, she would disappear into a cell and never be seen again. It would be the perfect solution. The witness to my cowardice, the woman who held a gun to my head, would be gone. I looked at her. I saw the fear. I saw the pride. I saw the ghost of the father I had killed with a signature. And then my eyes drifted to the pillow on the soaked bed. The corner of the pillow was lifted. The black handle of the pistol was just barely visible to me, but hidden from the police. If they searched the room, they would find it. Illegal possession of a firearm. Attempted kidnapping. The charges would be endless. The sergeant followed my gaze. He was about to turn toward the bed. "Sir?" the sergeant asked, waiting for my command. "Who is this woman?" Chioma held her breath. The room went still. I stepped between the police officer and Chioma. "This woman," I said, my voice booming in the small space, "is the reason I am alive. She sheltered me from the storm. She saved my life." The tension in Chioma's shoulders dropped, but her eyes remained wary. "Is that so?" The sergeant looked disappointed he wouldn't get to beat anyone today. "Well, very good. Let's go, sir." "Wait," I said. I reached into my inner pocket. My wallet was soaked, but the business card I pulled out was plastic. Waterproof. The black card of my contact list. I held it out to Chioma. "Come to my office on Monday," I said. It wasn't a request. "Ask for me personally. Do not be late." She didn't take it. She just stared at me. "Take it," I urged, pressing it into her hand. "We have unfinished business regarding Harmony Markets." She took the card, her fingers brushing mine. They were cold. "Let's move," the security chief yelled. They ushered me out of the house, into the mud, and toward the waiting convoy of black SUVs that looked like spaceships in this poverty-stricken neighborhood. As I climbed into the back seat of the bulletproof vehicle, enjoying the blast of air conditioning, I looked back. Chioma was standing in the doorway of her ruined house, Tund on her hip, watching me. She didn't wave. She didn't smile. She looked like a queen surveying a battlefield. "Drive," I told Sunday. As the car pulled away, Sunday looked at me in the rearview mirror. "Thank God you are safe, sir. These areas are dangerous. You never know what kind of criminals are hiding in these holes." "Sunday," I said, staring out the window at the receding figure of the woman who had almost blown my brains out. "Yes, sir?" "Shut up." I leaned back, closing my eyes. I was safe. I was back in my world of power and comfort. But as the car hit the highway, my phone, which I had plugged into the car charger, buzzed. It wasn't a text. It was a notification from my bank. A security alert. Alert. Attempted access to safe deposit box 404 at midnight. I froze. Box 404. That was my personal off-the-books vault. The one that held the original, unedited environmental impact reports for the Harmony Markets project. The reports that proved I knew the land was unstable before I built the towers. I looked at the time of the alert. Midnight. Exactly when Chioma had the gun to my head. My blood ran cold. She hadn't just been holding me at gunpoint. She had been distracting me. "Sunday," I shouted, sitting up straight. "Turn the car around. Now." "Sir?" "Turn around." But it was too late. As I looked back through the rear window, I saw thick black smoke rising from the direction of Chioma's house. The house wasn't just flooded. It was on fire. And Chioma and Tund were nowhere to be seen. The heat from the flames was intense enough to singe the eyebrows off a man standing 10 feet away, but I didn't step back. I stood in the mud, my Italian loafers ruined, watching the small blue bungalow crumble into a skeleton of charcoal and ash. The rain had stopped, but the fire, fed by kerosene and desperation, roared with a life of its own. "Let me go," I snarled, shaking off Sunday's grip on my arm. "Sir, it is unsafe. The roof is about to collapse." Sunday shouted, his voice battling the crackle of burning timber. I ignored him. I scanned the crowd of onlookers, neighbors who had crawled out of their own flooded shacks to witness the spectacle. Their faces were illuminated by the orange glow, a sea of weary, terrified eyes. I was looking for her. I was looking for the sharp eyes of Chioma and the small, frightened face of Tund. They weren't there. "Where is she?" I grabbed a man standing nearby by the collar of his ragged shirt. "The woman who lived here. Where is she?" The man stammered, his eyes wide with fear at the sight of my security detail. She left. Just before the fire started. She carried the boy in a bag. She entered a Kiki Napep at the junction. She was gone. I released the man and stared at the inferno. My chest heaved. It wasn't just an escape, it was a scorched earth policy. She had burned her past. She had burned the only place I could link her to. She knew I would come back. She knew I would figure it out. "Sir," the head of my security team whispered, pressing a hand to his earpiece. "The fire service is on their way, but looking at this, nothing will be saved. If there was any evidence inside, it's gone." Evidence. The word tasted like bile. She hadn't just burned a house, she had burned the fingerprints of her existence. "Let's go," I said, my voice cold, devoid of the panic that was thrashing inside my ribs. As I turned to leave, something in the mud caught my eye. It was lying near the drainage gutter, half submerged in the brown sludge. I stooped down, ignoring Sunday's protest, and picked it up. It was the teddy bear. Tun's bear. One ear was missing and it was soaked in muddy water, but it was the only thing left of them. I squeezed it, dirty water dripping through my fingers. Why would a mother fleeing for her life leave behind her child's comfort? Unless she wanted me to find it. Unless it was a message. I'm not playing games anymore. The drive back to Banana Island was silent. The city of Lagos was waking up. The storm had passed, leaving behind flooded roads and fallen trees, but the chaos outside was nothing compared to the storm brewing in my mind. I entered my mansion, a sprawling edifice of glass and white marble that usually filled me with pride. Tonight it felt like a mausoleum. The air conditioning was humming, chilling the sweat on my skin. I walked past the imported art, past the grand staircase and straight into my study. "Get Jide on the phone. Now," I barked at Sunday before slamming the heavy oak door. I poured myself a glass of whiskey, my hand trembling slightly. I downed it in one burn. Then I sat at my desk and opened my laptop. I logged into the secure server. Access denied. I tried again. Access denied. My heart stopped. My phone rang. It was Jide, my chief technology officer, the man who built the digital fortress around my empire. "Boss," Jide's voice was shaky. "I was just about to call you. We have a situation." "I know we have a situation, Jide," I roared. "Why can't I access the vault?" "Because, sir, someone changed the biometric encryption keys at midnight." I froze. "That's impossible. To change the keys you need my physical thumbprint and a retina scan." I was stranded in a storm. "Exactly, sir. The logs show the access came from your mobile device. The one you had with you. The GPS coordinates match your location in the mainland." I dropped the phone to the desk, putting it on speaker. The room spun. It wasn't a coordinated attack with an accomplice. It was her. I replayed the night in my head. The bed. The exhaustion. I had fallen asleep. A deep, heavy sleep induced by stress and the rhythmic sound of the rain. Tund had been between us. But when I woke up, Tund was at the foot of the bed. Chioma was next to me. She hadn't just been sleeping. She had drugged me? No, I was just tired. She must have taken my hand while I slept. She used my thumb to unlock the phone. She used the phone's high-resolution camera to scan my iris, tech I had bragged about in interviews. She had bypassed the security using me as the key. "What did they take, Jide?" I whispered. "Nothing was transferred out of the bank accounts, sir. The money is safe. The files, Jide. Look at the document cloud." There was a pause, a silence that stretched for an eternity. "Sir," the folder labeled Project Harmony Geotech. It was copied. And then deleted from our server. I closed my eyes and sank back into my leather chair. She had the soil reports. The reports that proved the land under Emerald Towers, the towers housing 300 of Lagos's wealthiest families, including senators and oil moguls, was swamp land, unstable and prone to collapse if not reinforced with technology one had deemed too expensive 7 years ago. If she released those documents, I wouldn't just lose money. I would lose my freedom. I would be buried under lawsuits. The Iron King would rust in a prison cell. The gun to the head, it wasn't to kill me, it was to stall me. She needed time for the upload to finish on her burner phone before she made her escape. "Find her," I said to the empty room. Monday morning came with a deceptive calmness. The sun was shining over Lagos as if the city hadn't tried to drown itself 2 days prior. I walked into the Royal Griot Holdings headquarters wearing a navy blue three-piece suit, my face a mask of impenetrable stone. "Good morning, Mr. Balogun," the receptionist chirped. I didn't acknowledge her. I marched straight to the elevators, my security team flanking me like wolves. Inside the boardroom, my inner circle was waiting. My lawyer, Barrister Kalu, my PR head, Tola, and Jide looking like he hadn't slept in 48 hours. "Tell me you have a location," I said, sitting at the head of the long mahogany table. "We are trying, sir," Jide said, typing furiously on his tablet. "But she's a ghost. The name, Chioma, is common. We cross-referenced with the surname Okeke from the Harmony Market records. Her father's name was Okeke. We found records for a Chioma Okeke who attended the University of Lagos but dropped out 7 years ago. And nothing. No bank accounts active in the last 5 years. No registered address. No social media. She's been living entirely off the grid. Cash only. She has a son, I said, leaning forward. Ton. About 5 years old. Check school registrations. Check hospital records for births 5 years ago. We're doing that, sir. But in a city of 20 million people. Jide trailed off. Barrister Kalu cleared his throat. He was a sweating, nervous man who was very good at burying problems, but this problem was currently walking around with a lighter. Adewale, Kalu said softly. If she has the soil reports, we need to prepare for blackmail. How much are you willing to pay? She doesn't want money, I said, staring out the window at the skyline I helped build. She had a gun to my head, Kalu. She didn't ask for a transfer. She wants blood. Then we attack first, Tola, the PR head, suggested. Her eyes were cold. We release a statement saying the data was stolen by cyber terrorists. We claim the documents are forged. We discredit her before she even opens her mouth. And when the building collapses? I snapped, turning on her. Do we spin that too? The room went silent. We need to find her, I repeated. Not to arrest her. We need to negotiate. I spent the rest of the day in a haze of paranoia. Every time my phone buzzed, I expected the news alert. Emerald Towers scandal. Billionaire fraud. But the phone remained silent. By 6 p.m. the silence was maddening. Why hadn't she leaked it? Why hadn't she called? What was she waiting for? I dismissed my driver. I'll drive myself tonight. Sir, that is not advisable, the security chief protested. I said, give me the keys. I needed to clear my head. I took the G-Wagon, a tank of a car, and drove out of the island. I didn't go home. I found myself driving toward the mainland, toward the site of the old Harmony markets. The Emerald Towers stood tall and glistening against the twilight sky. It was a masterpiece of architecture, glass curves, hanging gardens, a symbol of modern Africa. I parked across the street and looked up at it. It looked strong, indestructible. But I knew the truth. Beneath those millions of tons of concrete, the earth was soft. We had bribed the inspectors. We had falsified the depth tests. It was just a market, I whispered to myself, repeating the mantra I had used 7 years ago. Just a dirty, disorganized market. We built something beautiful. But you killed a man to do it, a voice in my head whispered. And now his daughter holds the detonator. My phone buzzed. I jumped, grabbing it from the passenger seat. Unknown number. My thumb hovered over the screen. This was it. Hello? Mr. Balogun, a voice said. It wasn't Chioma. It was a man's voice. Calm, professional. Who is this? I am a courier. I have a package for you. I was instructed to deliver it to you personally. Where are you? I am standing at the gate of your residence in Banana Island. Your security will not let me in. Leave it with them. The instructions were specific, sir. Hand to hand. Or the contents go to the press. I slammed the steering wheel. Wait there. I am coming. I drove like a madman back to the island. When I arrived at my gate, a young man on a motorbike was waiting. He looked terrified of the armed guards surrounding him. I rolled down the window. Give it to me. He handed me a large brown envelope. She said to tell you, Chapter 1 is finished. The courier revved his bike and sped off before I could ask a question. I didn't open the envelope at the gate. I drove into my compound, parked in the garage, and walked into the kitchen. I placed the envelope on the marble counter. My hands were shaking. I grabbed a knife and slit the seal. I poured the contents out. It wasn't documents. It was a blueprint. An old, yellowing blueprint of the Harmony markets. And clipped to it was a photograph. The photograph was of me. But it wasn't a paparazzi shot. It was a photo taken from a distance, grainy and blurry. I was standing on a construction site, wearing a hard hat, shaking hands with a man. I squinted at the photo. The man I was shaking hands with, it was her father, Mr. Okeke. I remembered that day. It was months before the demolition. I had gone undercover, pretending to be a surveyor. I had shaken the man's hand, smiled at his face, and promised him that the market would be upgraded, not destroyed. I had lied to him face to face. And on the back of the photo, in neat, cursive handwriting, were 3 words. You promised him. And below that, a location. The Sky Lounge. Eco Hotel. Tonight. 9 p.m. Come alone. I looked at the clock. It was 8:15 p.m. The Sky Lounge was one of the most exclusive spots in Lagos. Public. Very public. She was smart. She knew I wouldn't try anything in a room full of diplomats and expatriates. I went upstairs and changed. I washed the smell of smoke and fear off my skin. I put on a fresh suit, black this time. Funeral attire. I drove to Eco Hotel. The lobby was buzzing with the usual Monday night crowd. I took the elevator to the penthouse floor. The Sky Lounge was dim, smelling of expensive perfume and cigars. Jazz music played softly in the background. I scanned the room. And then I saw her. She wasn't wearing the faded wrapper or the t-shirt. She was wearing a stunning emerald green evening gown that hugged every curve of her body. Her hair was no longer in simple cornrows, it was styled in an elegant updo. She wore gold earrings that caught the candlelight. She looked like she belonged here. She looked like a billionaire's wife. She was sitting at a corner table by the window overlooking the ocean. A bottle of champagne was already open on the table. I walked over, my legs feeling heavy. She didn't look up as I approached. She took a slow sip of her drink. "You look better dry," she said, her voice smooth, devoid of the accent she had used in the slum. I pulled out the chair opposite her and sat down. "Who are you really, Chioma?" She finally turned her gaze to me. The fire I had seen in the storm was still there, but now it was controlled. Focused. "I am the woman who holds your life in her hands, Adewale," she said, pouring a second glass of champagne and sliding it toward me. "Drink. We have a lot to discuss. And I promise you, you're going to hate every minute of it." I looked at the glass. I looked at her. "What do you want?" I asked. "Money? A house. I can give you 10 houses." She laughed softly. It was a terrifying sound. "I don't want your houses, Adewale. I want to build. And you?" She leaned forward, her eyes locking onto mine. "You are going to help me build the exact same market you destroyed. Stone by stone. On the front lawn of your emerald towers." I stared at her. "That's impossible. The land is developed. It's worth billions." "Then you better start tearing it down," she whispered. "Because if you don't break ground by Friday, the soil reports go to the BBC, CNN, and Al Jazeera. And the Iron King will be the man who buried a community." She raised her glass in a mock toast. "To partnership." I didn't pick up my glass. I just stared at the beautiful, dangerous woman across from me, realizing that the storm hadn't ended. It had just moved indoors. Partnership. I repeated the word, feeling the cold condensation of the champagne glass against my fingertips. It felt like a joke, a cruel, impossible punchline delivered by a woman who, just 24 hours ago, was boiling porridge in a shack. "You want me to demolish a 50 billion naira asset? You want me to evict 300 families, including senators and judges, because of a market? You are insane." Chioma didn't flinch. She picked up her clutch, standing with a grace that made the other patrons of the Sky Lounge turn their heads. They saw a beautiful woman, they didn't see the executioner she was. "Insanity, Adewale, is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result," she said quietly. "You keep building on quicksand and expecting it to hold. You have until Friday. After that, the world sees what lies beneath the emerald." She turned and walked away. I watched her go, the emerald green dress flowing behind her like liquid money. She didn't look back. She didn't hesitate. She left me sitting there with an untouched bottle of Dom Perignon and a heart that felt like it had been replaced by a heavy, cold stone. I didn't follow her. I couldn't. I was paralyzed by the sheer magnitude of her threat. I signaled the waiter, paid the bill, an amount that used to mean nothing to me but now felt like blood money, and took the elevator down. My reflection in the mirrored walls mocked me. The Iron King. The man who owned Lagos. I looked small. I looked terrified. I didn't go home. I couldn't face the empty silence of my mansion. Instead I drove. The G-Wagon prowled the streets of Victoria Island, crossing the bridge back toward the mainland. I told myself I was just driving to clear my head, but the car seemed to know where it was going. It took me to the Emerald Towers. It was nearly midnight. The twin towers pierced the night sky, illuminated by tasteful spotlights that highlighted the sleek glass curves. It was beautiful. It was my legacy. It was the project that had cemented my status as a tycoon. I parked across the street just staring at it. Lights were on in the penthouses. I imagined the lives inside. Children sleeping, couples arguing, people watching TV. 300 families. And Chioma wanted me to bring it all down? The soil reports. Her words echoed in my head. You keep building on quicksand. I needed to know. Was she just using the threat of a bureaucratic scandal, or was there something real? Was the danger immediate? I pulled out my phone and called the building manager, Mr. Okoro. He picked up on the third ring, his voice groggy. Sir? Is everything okay? It is late. Meet me in the lobby in 10 minutes, I ordered. Bring the keys to the sub-basement and the maintenance logs. The sub-basement, sir? But that area is. 10 minutes, Okoro. When I walked into the marble lobby of the Emerald Towers, the air smelled of lavender and money. The concierge bowed low. Okoro was waiting by the elevators, tucking his shirt into his trousers, looking nervous. Sir, this is a surprise inspection, he stammered, wiping sweat from his forehead. Take me down, I said. All the way down. To the foundation level. Okoro hesitated. Sir, the foundation level. The pumps have been acting up since the storm. It's a bit messy down there. Did I ask for a weather report? I snapped. Move. We took the service elevator. As the numbers descended, ground B1, B2, the air changed. The scent of lavender vanished, replaced by the heavy, damp smell of wet concrete and mold. The doors opened on B3. It was dark, lit only by flickering fluorescent strips. The hum of industrial sump pumps was deafening. Thrum 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 thrum. We are working on the drainage, sir, Okoro shouted over the noise. The storm was severe. The water table rose. I stepped out. My Italian shoes splashed into an inch of water. I walked past the roaring machines toward the far wall, the main retaining wall that held back the earth, and the swamp water, from the structure. I shone the flashlight of my phone onto the concrete. My breath caught in my throat. It wasn't a hairline fracture. It was a crack, jagged and ugly, running diagonally from the floor to the ceiling. Water was weeping through it, a steady, dark tear running down the face of the concrete. It looked like an open wound. How long? I asked, my voice barely audible over the pumps. Okoro looked at his feet. We noticed the stress fractures 6 months ago, sir. We patched them. But after the storm on Saturday, it opened up again. The ground is shifting, sir. The piles, they aren't finding resistance. I touched the wall. It was cold and slick. The vibration of the pumps traveled through my fingertips. This wasn't just a building code violation. This was a ticking time bomb. Chioma wasn't just blackmailing me for revenge. She was right. The building was dying. Why wasn't I told? I turned on Okoro, fury rising in my chest. We sent the reports to the technical director, sir. To Mr. Jide. He said the budget for retrofitting was denied. He said we should just patch it and paint over it. I leaned against a pillar, feeling sick. I had created a culture of silence. A culture where profit mattered more than truth. And now I was standing in the tomb I had built. Get a structural engineer here tomorrow, I said, my voice hollow. Discreetly. I want to know how long we have. I left the basement, the sound of the pumps chasing me like the heartbeat of a dying giant. Tuesday morning. The boardroom at Royal Griot Holdings was colder than usual. I sat at the head of the table. To my right was Barrister Kalu. To my left was Chief Badmus, the head of my external security, a man who solved problems that couldn't be solved legally. She wants the towers demolished, I told them. I didn't mention the crack in the basement. I needed to see their reactions first. Kalu laughed, a nervous titter. Demolished? She is delusional. We can offer her 50 million. She's a poor woman, Adewale. 50 million will change her life. She will take it and disappear. I offered her money, I said. She refused. Chief Badmus leaned forward. He was a large man with scars on his knuckles and eyes that had seen too much violence. If she refuses money, sir, then she is not a business problem. She is a pest. And pests are exterminated. The room went silent. No, I said sharply. No violence. She has a child. Collateral damage, Badmus shrugged. Sir, you are talking about the flagship of your empire. If she leaks those reports, the stock crashes. The investors pull out. You go to jail. We cannot let one angry woman dictate the fate of this company. I said no. I slammed my hand on the table. We find another way. We find leverage. We find something she cares about other than revenge. She cares about the boy, Kalu said softly. Tund. I looked at Kalu. We are not touching the boy. We don't have to hurt him, Kalu said quickly, raising his hands. We just secure him. Protective custody. If we have the boy, she hands over the drive. It's a trade. Simple. I stared at them. These were my advisors. My generals. And they were discussing kidnapping a 5-year-old as if it were a merger acquisition. And the worst part? A week ago I might have agreed. But I remembered the weight of Tund in my arms on top of that wardrobe. I remembered him asking, "Are we going to die?" And me promising him safety. "Get out," I whispered. "Sir?" I said, "Get out. All of you." I roared. "I will handle this myself." They scrambled out of the room, leaving me alone with the ghosts of my choices. I needed to talk to her. Not as a billionaire but as a man. I needed to show her the crack in the wall. I needed to tell her that I believed her now. That we could fix this together without destroying everything. I called the number she had used to text me. It went straight to voicemail. I called Sunday. "Get the car. We are going back to the mainland." "Sir? The house is burnt down," Sunday reminded me. "I know. Drive to the school. The one in the area. If she's as smart as I think she is, she wouldn't have pulled Tund out of school yet. She doesn't want to disrupt his routine. She wants to appear normal." We drove to the only primary school near her old neighborhood. It was a small, dilapidated structure with peeling yellow paint. It was break time. Children were running around in the dusty courtyard in oversized uniforms. I told Sunday to wait. I walked to the gate. The security guard, an old man half asleep on a plastic chair, jumped up when he saw my suit. "Good afternoon, sir." "I am looking for a student," I said, slipping a 1,000 naira note into his hand. "Tundo Keke. Is he in school today?" The guard checked his register. Tund. Ah yes. Primary 1. But his mother came to pick him up early. Just 30 minutes ago. My heart sank. I was too late. Did she say where they were going? "No, sir." "But." The guard scratched his head. Was strange. She didn't come in a taxi. A big car came for them. A black Jeep. Like yours. A cold chill ran down my spine. A black Jeep? Who was driving? "I don't know, sir." Big man. Scar on his hand. My blood turned to ice. Chief Badmus. I hadn't just dismissed them. I had triggered them. Badmus didn't work for me. He worked for the survival of the company. He worked for the board. And he had decided that I was too weak to do what needed to be done. Which way did they go? I grabbed the guard by the shoulders. Toward the warehouse district, sir. Near the port. I ran back to the car. Sunday. Call Badmus. I dialed Badmus's number as Sunday tore onto the road, scattering chickens and pedestrians. The phone rang. And rang. "Pick up, you bastard," I screamed. Finally the line clicked open. "Sir," Badmus's voice was calm, terrifyingly professional. "Where are they, Badmus?" I shouted. "If you touch a hair on that boy's head, I will kill you myself." "Sir, you are emotional," Badmus said smoothly. "You are compromised." The board agreed that intervention was necessary. "We have the targets. We are currently negotiating the exchange of the data drive." Negotiating? With a child. The woman is stubborn, sir. But every mother has a breaking point. We are just accelerating the process. "Where are you?" "It is better you don't know, sir. By tonight, the drive will be destroyed, the woman will be paid off and put on a plane to London, and your legacy will be secure. You can thank me later." Click. He hung up. I threw the phone against the dashboard. He has them. He has them, Sunday. Sunday looked at me in the rearview mirror, his eyes wide. "What do we do, Oga?" I closed my eyes. I had spent 40 years building a fortress of power, thinking it made me invincible. But now, that very fortress had turned its guns on the only innocent thing I had encountered in years. "Turn right," I said, opening my eyes. "Go to the docks. The old shipping container yard." "How do you know they are there?" "Because," I said, unbuttoning my expensive jacket and rolling up my sleeves. "That is where I met Badmus 10 years ago. That is where we bury our problems." I wasn't Adewale Balogun, the CEO, anymore. I was a man who had made a promise to a 5-year-old boy in a thunderstorm. "Sunday," I said, my voice low and dangerous. "Under my seat. Is it still there?" Sunday hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, sir. The Glock. From the election period. Get it?" We sped toward the docks, the skyline of Lagos blurring past us. The irony wasn't lost on me. To save my future, I had to go to war with my own past. And this time I wasn't fighting for money. I was fighting for redemption. As we pulled up to the rusted gates of the shipping yard, I saw Badmus's SUV parked near a stack of red containers. 2 guards stood outside. I checked the clip of the gun. My hands were shaking, not from fear, but from a rage I hadn't felt since I was a poor boy fighting for scraps in the street. "Stay in the car, Sunday," I said. "Keep the engine running." I stepped out into the humid, salty air. I walked toward the containers, the gun hidden behind my back. I could hear a child crying. And then I heard Chioma's voice. She wasn't screaming. She was singing. A low, trembling lullaby trying to drown out the terror. Step by step, I walked into the lion's den. I turned the corner of the container and saw them. Chioma was on her knees in the dust, holding tongue tight. Badmus was standing over them, holding a lighter in one hand and a phone in the other. "Last chance, madam," Badmus said, flicking the lighter open and shut. Click, click. "Give me the password to the cloud account, or the boy stops crying permanently." "Badmus," I shouted, stepping into the open. He spun around, surprised. "Sir? I told you to stay away." "Let them go," I said, raising the gun. Badmus looked at the gun in my hand and laughed. "You? Shoot me? You can't even fire a secretary yourself, Adewale. You pay people like me to do the dirty work. Put it down before you hurt yourself." He turned his back on me, dismissing me completely, and stepped toward Chioma. "The password," he roared, raising his hand to strike her. Bang. The sound echoed through the shipping yard like a cannon blast. Badmus froze. He looked down at his leg. A blossom of red was spreading on his thigh. He collapsed to one knee with a grunt of shock. I stood there, smoke rising from the barrel. I hadn't missed. I said. I walked forward, my voice steady. "Let them go." The other two guards raised their rifles, uncertain. They looked at their fallen boss, then at me, the man who signed their paychecks. "Drop the weapons," I ordered. "Or the next one goes in his head. I am the Iron King. I own you. I own this land. I own your lives. Drop them." The authority in my voice, the raw, undeniable power of the billionaire, finally worked. They lowered their guns. Chioma looked up at me. Her face was bruised. Her dress was torn. But in her eyes, for the first time, I didn't see hatred. I saw hope. "Get in the car," I told her, keeping the gun trained on Badmus. "Take the boy. Run." "What about you?" she whispered. I looked at Badmus, who was groaning in the dust, and then at the crumbling empire around me. "I have a building to demolish," I said. The tail lights of the taxi Chioma had flagged down disappeared into the smog and darkness of the Lagos night. I stood alone in the shipping yard, the weight of the gun in my hand feeling heavier than the steel beams of the towers I had built. Behind me, Badmus was groaning, clutching his leg, his ego and his dominance shattered in the dust. "Take him to the hospital," I told the stunned guards, my voice devoid of anger. "Then take him to the police station. Tell them Adewale Balogun is pressing charges for kidnapping and extortion." "And you, sir?" Sunday asked, his voice trembling as he stepped out of the car. "Where are we going? To the airport? The private jet is ready. You can be in London by morning. You can escape this mess." I looked at Sunday. I looked at the city skyline in the distance, dominated by the twinkling lights of the Emerald Towers. It would be so easy to run. To let Badmus take the fall, to pay off Chioma from a distance, to let the building stand on its rotten foundation until gravity finally claimed it years from now. That was what the old Adewale would have done. "No, Sunday," I said, tossing the gun into the murky water of the lagoon. "Take me to the towers." "Sir? It's late. The residents are sleeping." "Exactly," I said, buttoning my torn jacket. "We have to wake them up." The drive to Victoria Island was the longest of my life. I wasn't planning a business strategy, I was planning my own funeral. Not a physical death, but the death of the Iron King. When we arrived at the Emerald Towers, I didn't go to the penthouse. I went to the fire command center in the lobby. The night concierge looked at me with alarm. I was covered in dust, my shoes ruined, my eyes wild. "Mr. Balogun?" "Sir?" "Trigger the alarm," I ordered. "Sir? The fire alarm? But there is no smoke." I said, "Trigger the damn alarm. And get on the PA system. Total evacuation. This is not a drill." The concierge hesitated, then saw the look in my eyes. He smashed the glass and pulled the lever. Whoop whoop whoop. The sound was piercing. It tore through the silence of the luxury estate. Within minutes, the lobby was filled with confused, angry residents in silk pajamas and robes. Senators, oil tycoons, expatriates, people who paid millions for peace of mind, were now shouting at me. "Adewale, what is the meaning of this?" Senator Roberts bellowed, holding his terrified wife. "Is this a prank?" I climbed onto the concierge desk. I looked at the sea of faces. These were my peers, my investors, my friends, and I had sold them a lie. "Please listen," I shouted, raising my hands. "You need to leave. Now. Get your families, get your essentials, and get out." "Why?" a woman screamed. Is there a bomb? No, I said, my voice cracking. There is something worse. There is greed. I took a deep breath. The foundation of this building is compromised. I built it on unstable land. I bribed the inspectors. I hid the reports. It is not safe. It could stand for 10 years or it could fall tonight. But I will not gamble with your lives for 1 second longer. A hush fell over the room. Absolute, terrified silence. Then pandemonium. The next 6 hours were a blur of screaming sirens, flashing lights, and news crews. By dawn, the Emerald Towers were empty. The area was cordoned off. I stood alone in the parking lot as the sun rose over the structure. It looked so majestic, so strong. But I knew the truth. A news van pulled up. A reporter shoved a microphone in my face. Mr. Balogun, you just admitted to fraud on a massive scale. You've destroyed your own company. What? Why confess now? I looked into the camera. I hoped Chioma was watching. I hoped Ton was watching. Because, I said quietly, I spent a night in a storm with a woman who had nothing, yet she protected her child with everything. I realized I have everything, but I was protecting nothing but my ego. A house built on lies is not a home. It's a coffin. I turned to the police commissioner who was waiting with handcuffs. I am ready, I said. 1 year later. The Harmattan wind blew dust across the open field in the heart of the mainland. It was a dry, cool breeze that carried the scent of roasted corn and fresh cement. I adjusted my hard hat. It wasn't the pristine white helmet of a CO anymore. It was scuffed, used. I wasn't wearing an Italian suit. I was wearing jeans and a polo shirt with the logo New Harmony Cooperative stitched on the chest. I wasn't a billionaire anymore. The lawsuits had taken the mansion, the cars, the private jet, and the majority of my liquid assets. I had avoided prison only because of my voluntary confession and the fact that I liquidated everything I owned to fully refund every tenant of the Emerald Towers. I was left with nothing but my name, which was mud in the business world, and my freedom. But I had never felt richer. Adewale. The mix is ready, a foreman shouted. I'm coming. I yelled back, grabbing a shovel. We weren't building a skyscraper. We were building a market. A proper, modern, safe market with sturdy stalls, a clinic, and a school. We were building it on the site where Chioma's house had burned down, land I had purchased with the very last of my savings. I wiped sweat from my forehead and looked toward the entrance of the site. A Toyota Corolla pulled up. It wasn't a limousine, but it was reliable. Chioma stepped out. She looked radiant. She wore a simple yellow dress that caught the sun. She was holding a ledger in one hand and a lunch cooler in the other. She wasn't just a survivor anymore. She was the director of the project. I worked for her. And running ahead of her, dodging the piles of sand, was Tund. He was taller now, his school uniform crisp and clean. Uncle Whale, he screamed, launching himself at me. I caught him, swinging him into the air. His laughter was the best sound in Lagos. Did you finish my office? He asked, grinning. The treehouse is almost done, I promised him, setting him down. Go and check the paint. He ran off toward the large mango tree we had preserved in the center of the market square. Chioma walked up to me. She didn't smile immediately. She surveyed the site, checking the progress, her eyes sharp. She was a tough boss. The roof trusses are late, she noted. The supplier had a flat tire. They will be here by noon, I explained, wiping my hands on a rag. She looked at me. Really looked at me. The anger that had defined her face for so long was gone, replaced by a quiet respect. You look tired, Adewale, she said softly. I'm fine, I shrugged. Hard work is good for the soul. Better than sitting in air conditioning signing papers. She reached into her cooler and pulled out a container. I made porridge. Yam porridge. I froze. Memories of that night, the rain, the gun, the fear, flooded back. But also the warmth. The intimacy of survival. Is it safe? I joked weakly. She laughed, a genuine bell-like sound that made the other workers look up. No gun this time. Just crayfish and plenty of pepper. We sat on a stack of cinder blocks, eating lunch together. The sun was high. The noise of the city buzzed around us, but here, in this space we were building together, there was peace. Do you miss it? She asked suddenly, looking at a billboard in the distance that showed a shiny new bank. The power? The money? I took a bite of the yam. It was spicy, hot, and delicious. I miss the AC sometimes, I admitted. But no, I don't miss the man I was. That man was lonely. That man was drowning. I looked at Tund, who was busy shouting instructions to a bemused carpenter near the tree. I lost a fortune, Chioma, I said, turning to her. But I found my conscience. I think I got the better deal. She placed her hand on mine. Her skin was warm, rougher now from work, but real. My father, she said, her voice thick with emotion. He would have liked this market. He would have liked that you were sweating to build it. I am building it for him, I said. And for you. And for Tund, she added. And for Tund, I agreed. She squeezed my hand. We have a shareholders' meeting tonight. At my house. Dinner. Is that a summons, Madam Director? It's an invitation, Adewale. Her eyes twinkled. And maybe, just maybe, you won't have to sleep on the edge of the bed this time. My heart skipped a beat. The storm had passed. The floodwaters had receded. And on the solid ground that remained, we had built something that no wind could ever tear down. I smiled, the first true unburdened smile of my life. I'll be there, I said. Midnight. Don't be late, she whispered. I watched her walk away to inspect the foundation, a foundation I had personally checked 3 times to ensure it was deep, strong, and true. I picked up my shovel. The Iron King was dead. Long live Adewale the Builder. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more gripping stories like this. What do you think? Did Adewale deserve a second chance? Comment below.